Come along, children. Now we're going to have a little music.
Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome back to First Cut. This is our spoiler review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So if you haven't watched the movie, make sure you watch the movie, come right back here and watch it with us. We're going to be talking all about spoilery stuff inside the film. I'm here with RB3. RB3, we're excited because we're massive fans of the Guardians franchise. This is one of our favorite franchises inside the MCU. We love Guardians 1 and 2. So Guardians 3 was highly anticipated for us. You already have your review up, RB3, but I know you enjoyed this movie, right?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. This is one of the, to me, is one of the best films, one of the best MCU films we've seen, in a long time. I mean, just from phase 1 to now. And I think, and especially in recent times, it really tugged the emotional heartstrings and did everything right. Beautiful film, gorgeous, and some of the best visual. I didn't say this in the review, but visually, some of the best filmmaking we've seen in the MCU in a while as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, man. It was such a beautiful film, so touching and emotional. A lot of roller coaster of emotions when it comes to the type of comedy they have in this movie, and then compare that to the emotional beats they have in here and the character arcs and the character journeys for each character. The movie hits in a specific manner in which you kind of have to be a fan of these characters, but luckily we are fans. I'm a massive fan of these characters. I love each and every one of them for a specific reason, and that's why it hit such a special note. But I told you before we started recording, and I have a bone to pick with you, RB3. You told me on Twitter that this is a movie made for animal lovers.
Yep.
And I'm like, yo, what kind of movie are you watching, bro?
What do you mean?
This movie was so hard to watch. I'm an animal lover. And I was like, yo, I was expecting, a little bit of sadness. I didn't expect full-blown torture. Like, maybe because I skipped the trailers and I skipped like a lot of it, but I was like, yo, what is going on? This is like pitch black dark, bro. This is like a torture porn animal shit. I was like, this is hard to watch, man. This was hard to watch.
Yeah,
I was heartbroken.
It's like Cannibal Holocaust. It was like Marvel's version of Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah, damn, bro.
For me, I mean, when I said that tweet, and I think, I meant that in the very much like
by the end of the movie, right?
By the end of the movie, like how the message, the theme, like, but if you're a Peter Jackson, like you'll watch this movie and be like, yo, this movie is it's like Roots, like when like Black people are like, oh, I love Roots. They don't love watching Roots, but they say that because it's like, look at the struggle. They get the struggle, That's obviously something that Disney's going to do because they love cute animals and movies, like, and all that stuff.
And James loves it too. He does a lot.
And his, all of course, his filmography, of course, Scooby-Doo, all that stuff. But I also just think, it also is like a fascinating commentary on like corporations in general, like the overextension of like corporations and how they could just nuke something real quick, and I know a lot of people recently, I know we're probably going to talk about this a little later, but how there's like a little bit of a twisted Disney analogy that some people are like deriving from this movie, like how they're saying like the High Evolutionary is like a Bob Iger kind of figure, and I'm like, yo, that's an interesting way to look at this film too. So it does peep in on a lot of levels that are deep, and I think it hones in on that the best. Like I think, the way that Black Panther is like directly about race, I think this movie is like directly about animal cruelty. And to me, I appreciate movies that are just like direct and blatant about a theme and just out there. And to me, it's like, I know I tweeted earlier, this weekend about like Tyrone Magnus. He was like going crazy about this movie is like anti-woke, like who can believe it's like da-da-da. I'm like, bro, this movie is like the most woke when you know the definition of woke, right? Like it's like the most politically affirmative movie you can imagine in the MCU in a long time, probably post since like Black Panther. So I don't know.
It was just tough to watch I'm a hardcore animal lover. I mean, I've told you that a million times, and that's real. So watching this movie, it wasn't just a couple scenes. It was a lot of scenes. And that's why, to me, it was just so tough to get through, to the point that I was like, damn, there's something so twisted inside James Gunn, to the point that I'm like, I don't even know if he like animals. I think he just liked the message of it, because it was just so tough at times. But I definitely felt it by the end of it. Obviously, there's a huge thematic portion in this movie. And I feel like that was pertinent by the end of it, right? Where you have the high evolutionary ship going down, spoilers, as I said, and you have Rocket seeing his family and seeing where he comes from and seeing exactly what he is, right? Which is this animal inside this cage. But he also sees all the other animals surrounding him and all the other animals that are about or were about to experience the same fate that he was. And he feels for them, and he feels that kind of emotion that you would feel for a family member, friend, or anyone else. Having the kind of love and respect for animals is something that's not, it's something that's so underrated in my opinion. And I know that's such a weird term to use, but it's something that should be at a much higher level than it is currently in our society, and especially in our culture, where we have an American culture that glorifies hunting animals for fun, that glorifies treasure hunting and putting heads of animals in people's homes, and going to Africa and shooting elephants and shooting tigers and shooting rhinoceroses and destroying wildlife in general. And to me, it's so interesting that those same people claim goodliness and godliness and don't realize that that's probably some of the most anti-God shit you can do when it comes to the actual terminology that's in the Bible, when it comes to the kind of respect for nature, when it comes to Adam, literally in the movie, Adam in the Bible and Adam in the movie, but Adam and Eve, and Adam taking care of these animals and naming these animals and nurturing these animals in the Bible and in the beginning of time. And at the same time, taking that to Noah, taking these animals to the new world and realizing that our responsibility as humanity is also a responsibility to nature and to animals. And I'm so passionate about it, as you could tell, but I feel like that's so powerful in the movie. And it's clear when it comes to High Evolutionary playing God, when it comes to Adam being in the movie, when it comes to Noah's Ark by the end of it, when they rescue all the animals. But yeah, it hit me hard. It really did.
And not even, and just as you mentioned, the poaching culture and
that's what it
as
was.
mounting and all that stuff, poaching and all that, but also the makeup culture, right? Like how in makeup and skincare routines, like a lot of times it does incorporate animal cruelty, animal torture, and that's something that they also touched on in Avatar: Way of the Water, right? With the wells and mining the wells for the fountain of youth. That's a whole metaphor for makeup, right? And then that's kind of what the High Evolutionary is doing here. He's taking, that's like what essentially animal torturers do when they make the makeup products. They take animals, suck their natural life out of them, and transform it into something that they idealize as beautiful. Same thing that the High Evolutionary is doing. So it's like and again, going to the whole, if you're looking at this as like a metaphor for Disney, right? It's like the whole idea of Disney taking like flawed concepts, flawed creators, flawed people, and then kind of twisting them and morphing them into like some weird perfect image, and then just kind of like throwing them away when they don't want to. Some people would say that's what they did with James Gunn, with like the firing and rehiring of him to begin with, right? But that it's just funny, like on like the whole idea of control, the whole idea of power, the whole idea of like, oh, there's an authoritarian leader across multiple sectors of the universe that people look up to. Well, shout out to Tiffany Smith, by the way, who had that brief cameo explaining the High Evolutionary when they were on on that fleshy planet, which was super weird. Yeah, but just seeing how, and you say like mad corners of the universe look up to this guy as a creator, as a god, but in all reality, he's just as flawed as any other human, if not more flawed. So
yeah, and it really does show to the pushing of the science as well, right? Which is something that actually happens in real life, where we do experiment on animals in brutal and torturistic kind of ways, in torturous ways. And I feel like that's something that's real. I mean, that this isn't anything new that the movie is showing us. This is something that actually happens, but we just kind of turn a blind eye to it. So yeah, there's a lot of that, but there's also another layer RB3 that I want to get to, because I do feel like it's actually there as well when it comes to not just animals, but when it comes to like misfits, when it comes to misrepresented, misunderstood communities. And I feel like that's something that's so important in the movie as well, when it comes to Rocket's character, right? Where he's already sentient and he's already a person who can understand, who can create concepts, who's smart, as all this stuff, and yet he's still going to be killed and experimented on and studied. He doesn't get chosen to get taken into the new world where High Evolutionary is taking his new people. And that to me was a theme on people nowadays who are being persecuted and turned against and have prejudice against, and just so many groups of people that are being killed all over the world, whether it is in Asian countries, whether it is in Middle Eastern countries, whether it is in America. There are communities who are being pushed down to the point of being eliminated. And I feel like that's a real thing. And I feel like the movie can also be a representation on real people who are being pushed down and killed and murdered and misrepresented, and it created a fear-mongering culture about them. And I feel like that's a pertinent thing in the movie, because they specified the difference between the animals and saving the animals, and that's important, but it's also important to save sentient beings who are misunderstood as well, which I think can represent certain communities as well.
Which is so fascinating, which I think that's exactly what the Counter Earth whole scenes and everything represents, like how it's like a flip side of even like a fake created Earth, these earthbound, these kind of Earth looking world, even though everything's stuck in like this 1950s aesthetic, because apparently these creatures like really can't, they're sentient, but they really can't create and invent like new things the same way Rocket can. So they don't really like move forward industrially. That's why everything's like in the 1950s looking. But I think it's so cool that they have that, that it does play exactly with that misfit toys idea. Like everybody, it's like there's a community created, you know, for the purpose of trying to be perfect and trying to be idealistic, but we still see octopuses, you know, selling meth. You know, we still seeing people getting robbed and beat up on the streets. It just looks like the same ghetto stuff that we see in the rest of the world, in the current modern world. So it's like no matter how much control you try and implement on the people and in a society, the society is going to be a society, especially if it's society built on this rigid, you know, idea of, you know, stepping over people, authoritarianism, capitalism, you know, things of that nature. So yeah, it really does go deep on the commentary. And I think it does really get on the outer world commentary when going to the Counter Earth stuff, but also the inner world commentary and making Peter Quill a character who, you know, I personally felt connected with, because especially from the second movie, where he's like dealing with a lot of like father issues and things of that nature, and how he has been kind of just running from his truth throughout this whole series. But going to the Counter Earth is kind of like a fun, like mirror version of what his actual home was like. Still also in the time period, probably not exactly 50s or 60s, but like in the 80s when he like left originally. So it was fascinating to see that. It was good to see that. And that's why I think him ultimately having that journey, spoiler alert again, of coming home and going back to his grandfather, I think felt so fulfilling. I think I said in my initial review, everybody's character arc felt very, very rich and very, very fulfilled. And I thought that was really dope.
I was about to say that every single character inside this movie that's a Guardian of the Galaxy has an amazing arc that you can relate to. I wrote each and every one of them down, whether it comes to Mantis, Nebula, Rocket, Drax, Star-Lord, Gamora. All of them have a mini arc. So if each one of them you relate to or you cater to or is your favorite in any way, you can hang on to that and you can latch onto it and feel it even more. And I felt that where I love each and every one of these characters. And I feel like Nebula had a start where she's the protector. She's the one trying to keep the group together on a logistical, logical level. And then you have Mantis trying to keep the group together on an emotional level. You have Drax trying to find his purpose. You have Gamora trying to find her home and her life inside this new world without Thanos and realizing that she's not the old Gamora. And then you have Peter trying to move on from Gamora and trying to move on from this life. And obviously Rocket as well. But each one of them have their own journey. Who do you feel like, maybe besides Rocket, because we get his entire journey in this movie, who do you feel like was the standout?
Well, obviously I feel like Peter definitely had a really amazing journey through and through. And just
he killed it in this movie.
Chris Pratt, I know we're not supposed to love this guy, but he actually really acted really well all throughout. And I think he delivered both the funny moments where he's interacting with Gamora and he's kind of presenting that awkwardness that was similar to what we saw in Guardians 1, but like a different kind of energy, because you felt like they had already been there, done that a little bit, but like he's still trying to win her back too. So it was good humor, but also good emotion. And, you know, the beginning with the sadness. And by the way, you know, I know a lot of critics were like kind of downing the movie for like using the music too much, like pulling out your emotional heartstrings too much, but I loved it. Like the opening sequence when they're using the Creep acoustic version as Rock is walking through and you see Peter Quill just like knocked over drunk. It just felt so like rich and like lived in and like so human. And it just felt, it's, you know, especially in the world, there's like so many aliens, so many out of the colorful characters. It just felt like a real human like expression all the way throughout every music cue. And every time the music cut out, like again, that conversation that Gamora and Peter Quill have together when it actually turns out to be like a public line with all of them was like extremely funny to me. So yeah, all the moments of him, all the moments with Peter Quill and with Chris Pratt felt really good.
Another thing that stood out for me with Peter was the fact that he's such a badass in this movie. And I feel like Endgame and Infinity War, he even kind of pokes fun at it, where he's just like, I was such an idiot in those movies, where he says it in this movie, to the point that you're just like, damn, I forgot he's actually kind of smart, kind of a badass, kind of dope. Like he's actually really, he's got a good head on his shoulders when he's locked in, because obviously in the beginning of the movie he's kind of out of it, but when he's locked in, he can, you know, he can get buckets, man. I was like, yo, Peter's getting buckets. Like,
yeah,
he can shoot, bro.
When he got the lady to flip on them and
stuff like that.
The gravity thing, that was really funny.
Yeah, he's cool, man. I really liked him. To me, my other standouts would be Mantis and Nebula. I feel like I really enjoyed their journeys as a pair, where they're both trying to be the head and the heart of the group, and they both kind of have to find their own journeys and their own paths by the end of the movie. And that's why, bro, I was a wreck. Like a wreck. Like I didn't cry. I bawled. Like prime LeBron James ball. Like Kobe ball. Like ball. I bawled my eyes out like crazy in this whole movie. Like every 30 minutes I was crying. But a lot of that had to do obviously with the rocket stuff, but also with the characters. I wanted to talk about the music, RB3, that's what I have in my notes. How did you feel about the music use in this movie? I know you mentioned it a little bit, but did you have a favorite needle drop?
I did have a couple favorite needle drops. Because I was literally listening to the soundtrack.
Nice.
On the way in. And
is it Reasons?
That was really good. The one thing I love that needle drop. I just didn't like how it cut in and out, like in between that fight scene. I'm like, hey, just give me the full thing all the way through. And it became sad when Drax got shot in the back. I'm like, is Drax dead? I don't know. I don't want to hear that over Earthwind. But that was a nice needle drop. But really the one that stood out to me, and they used it in some of the trailers, was in the meantime by Space Hog, when they come out of the ship and they're all wearing the 2001 A Space Odyssey suits, and they're floating in space. And by the way, nobody in any review has talked about this. If you haven't seen this movie, I saw it twice. I saw it the first time in regular, in the premiere, and I saw it again in IMAX 3D. Watch this movie in IMAX 3D. This is one of the best 3D experiences I've had, period, in all of my life, just all the way around. Like the conversion, every part when they're in space, they're like actually floating towards. Every close-up that they had of Rocket really felt like it was like in your face, like a real close-up. It was great. That IMAX 3D, I can't give the highest compliments. But yeah, and seeing that needle drop when they come out of the ship, that was my favorite needle drop. I will say the one thing I didn't like, and you know, shout out Beastie Boys. You know what I mean? I know that's every white boy's favorite, you know, rap group. That part just had me rolling my eyes so hard. Like the No Sleep Till Brooklyn, maybe just because I've heard it so many times in so many movies. But that was just the one part I'm like, that's the one needle drop. But everything else, all the other soundtrack drops, and of course, I don't want to take all the. You save some of your favorites because I don't want to take all of them. But,
no, keep going.
Just the last one, of course, when they get to the 2000s, Florence and the Machine.
Oh, you took mine. Yes.
I didn't want to say that, you know what I mean? But yeah.
No. Because my favorite was still Creep. I mean, obviously that's the first one, but it's still my favorite one in the movie. But I can't lie, and you're gonna back me up. It sounds like you're gonna back me up here. As soon as it was like Florence and the Machines, and I hear the little happiness, and I was like, oh nah. I'm about to cry like not Florence and the Machines. I literally said that in my theater, bro. I was like, not Florence and the Machines, bro. Tell me about what that song made you feel, bro, in that scene. It was just, and why it was a perfect closeout song. Why was it the perfect?
The obvious thing is the dog. You know, the metaphor of the dog. Yeah.
But also dog days in general.
Yeah. It's just the hard times. It's because
it's a
struggle movie. Like it is really like like the 12 Years a Slave of like Marvel films, like in terms of being through some abusive imagery and then just having to give some relief at the very end. Like like by the end, you're just kind of like when Drax does that little look over his shoulder, he just starts like dancing too. I'm like, yes, yeah, like I'm here too. Like I'm ready to dance too, because that movie definitely has you like over. It's such a nice way to close out the franchise when the first movie ends with the dance off, and now the last movie ends with everybody dancing together like in harmony. It was just a beautiful way to close out the trilogy. It was nice.
Yeah, I feel like there was definitely a lot of that. Any favorite jokes in the movie?
Man, when they're on the fleshy planet and Mantis makes that one guy fall in love with Drax, and then he's like, you do this every time. Like, how many times have they had this interaction? And by the way, we didn't mention Drax's story arc. I thought his character arc was really good too.
Yeah,
it's surprising because they haven't played on the father aspect of him as much as they alluded to in the first movie. The second movie just kind of went away, but it's nice seeing that really come into full fruition here, and then have a full, him just finding his place in the Guardians too. Honestly, almost all the interactions between Drax and Mantis were so funny, and that really made the part when Mantis was like, "Oh, I want to go solo," and then Drax was like, "But you need a protector," and she's like, "No, Drax, that's the point." And you just see him start tearing up, like, "Oh man, that was heartbreaking right there." I felt that.
When she said goodbye to Drax at the end,
and
they just raised their hand and waved goodbye, I was like, "Bruh,
yeah,
it's killing me." The whole every goodbye scene killed me by a lot for sure. But yeah, obviously there's so many incredible jokes in this movie. I think they were all awesome. Let's quickly finish off with the villains. Adam Warlock and High Evolutionary. Adam was more like a side villain. He's more like a bounty hunter. And then High Evolutionary, the main villain. How'd you feel about him?
High Evolutionary was great, man. I mean, they're just that actor. I mispronounced his name in the first review. I'm probably going to mispronounce it again. But there actually is a great interview that Dorian did on Geeks of Color with the brother. So make sure to check that out. Put that link in the description. But man, he was so good. Like his performance, he was great in Peacemaker as well.
He was, yeah.
Part in that show. But he was just amazing in this movie, man. There were a couple scenes, again, I mentioned this in my original review, but he was overcooking it a little bit. Like he was going super, super hard, like with the screaming and the yelling. I'm like, dang, all right, like you're kind of cooking it too hard. But it played into his character's like over the top nature. Like it seemed like he's been alive for like thousands of years. So he just like is just, I don't know, he's an over the top kind of dude. But yeah. I really dug it. I dug his performance a lot.
You know who I loved?
Who's
and
that?
I think I'm the only one. I loved Adam. I thought Adam was cool.
He was funny.
I thought he was funny, and I thought like his character arc was just essentially to be there as a support player, and obviously as like a side villain as well, but also to show you his own journey as a creation of the High Evolutionary, right? Because that's what he is, and obviously he loses his mother, and he tries to come into his own. But I enjoyed him, and I felt like it made sense everything he did in the movie when it came to doing what he had to do as a responsibility to his people, the sovereign. And also, I felt real bad. Again, this is another thing. His little homie, his little friend, bro. I was crying about him too, and I was just like, I don't even know who this is, but I want to hold him, bro.
When he lost his first,
yeah, I was like, this is kind of messed up. This isn't funny.
Because he lost one owner in the beginning, and then Adam looked like he was cooked to the
and he was crying when Adam died, bro. When he thought Adam died.
Yeah, but yeah, that was funny. He was not, and you know what? That was one of the funnier jokes when he cooked the dude in general. And by the way, Elizabeth Debicki, I thought she was like, she had a very small part in the Guardians too, but she was really funny. Even this part, it wasn't that much bigger, but I just really want to see more of her character too. Like even her interactions with both High Evolutionary and just like with her son, like trying to parent this guy. I think that's what James Gunn was really brilliant at. He knew a character like Adam Warlock would be very overpowered. So he didn't want to make it an overpowered, super smart guy. Instead, just having been like a dumbed down kid really made it kind of balance the power set a lot more so that he does fit into that secondary villain role, but also is mad scary because when they kill Rocket, like he almost kills Rocket in the very beginning, that was brutal. And using Rocket's almost death as the through line for the movie really is another emotional way that James Gunn like kind of pulls at your heartstrings and kind of teasing that story all the way out. It was but it was well done. And shout out Bradley Cooper. I know he's not really the most involved in like the production of the promotion of the movies, but his voice performance I think was just top tier as well. Like, and they're even in the sensitive moments when he's like young Rocket and he just has that like early, I don't even know if that was his voice or like a little kid's voice, when he just says like the hurt, like when he's like first got out of surgery, was really heartbreaking. All the scenes with him and Lila were tough. Yeah, so it was great, man. It was great all around.
Not heartbreaking, bro. It was tears on tears. I couldn't see.
Yeah,
I was crying like crazy. But yeah, absolutely, he killed it in every aspect as well. And like you said, what's cool about the movie is that it all centers around saving Rocket. So Nebula's doing her thing to try and save Rocket. Peter's doing his thing to try and save Rocket. Like it's all around his character and his journey and his life, right? And then we get to see his past because of that. And we get to see Gamora's perspective when she sees the crew doing this for this little raccoon creature that she doesn't really understand why he's so important. So yeah, it was definitely an emotional journey for sure. I want to see, go ahead.
Sorry, just one more, not related to anything. I didn't mean to cut you off to where you were going, but there's one more important joke that was amazing all the way through. We didn't mention was the good dog running joke from Cosmo.
Cosmo, yeah.
Shout out to Academy Award nominee Maria Bakalova.
Yeah, I love her.
Yeah, she was amazing. By the way, I had to, even after I watched the movie at the premiere, I had to go back and rewatch Borat too because I really do like that movie, and she's
great
in that. Yeah, and just hearing her voice as the space dog was really, really funny too.
Yeah, she's awesome, and I really do. I hope she gets more gigs because I really do think she's special. But yeah, I want to see your ranking on trilogies inside the MCU because I feel like that's specific enough. At least where would you put this?
Now? I would actually put this as my favorite trilogy in the MCU because a lot of people put a lot of people would put Captain America as their favorite trilogy. For me personally, I didn't really love the first Captain America that much. I really like the second one a lot, and the third, I mean, obviously Civil War is a masterpiece. But you know, with this one, I felt like all three knocked them out the park. The first one was a perfect introduction film. The second one was a perfect personal journey with Peter Quill, Ego, but also we didn't talk, a lot of people didn't talk about, because I went back and watched Guardians 2, the interaction between Peter and Rocket in that movie. Like they really hated each other at the beginning of that film and they became really close at the end of that film. So when they start talking about being each other's best friend at the beginning of this movie, it actually does kind of make sense. Like it does kind of feel like they had a whole thing together. So yeah, to me, Guardians will actually be number one. I'll probably put Captain America probably number two. And then, I think Iron Man that's a whole trilogy, right? Yeah, I'll put that as like number three. Oh, actually, sorry. I'll put Spider-Man number three, and then Iron Man number four, and then Ant-Man. Sorry, Ant-Man number five. This Thor technically counts, but
Thor counts.
I don't know if that counts. Does that count as a trilogy? Because
yeah, it counts.
Yeah. Okay, then I'll put Thor above Ant-Man. I'll put Thor above Ant-Man. So
100%.
Yeah.
Damn, bro. Ant-Man almost sank.
Yeah.
Ant-Man almost sank this movie, bro. Low key, it kind of did sank this movie.
Yeah,
we haven't talked about box office, but Quantumania did so much damage. But anyway, besides that, I would also put this number one. Last thing I want to say every three before I take off and before we take off is, with all my heart, I was so freaking heartbroken. We haven't even mentioned them. When little homies, I call them little homies because that's what they are to me. My little homies, freaking Lila and Tease and Floor, I was like, if they die, I'm a walk out. I'm walking my ass out this theater, bro. And sure enough, they died. And I was like, damn it. I'm so close to walking out right now. I was so mad, bro. But I love those little guys. And to be honest, man, their deformities in some theaters or in some audiences might be played up for laughs, but I saw those deformities and it broke my heart into a million pieces. Like, it really just destroyed me seeing Floor like that, and seeing Lila with those little fake arms, and seeing Teefs with his eyelids. Like, to me, it just completely destroyed me every time I saw them, bro. Like, I was gonna cry every time I saw their faces or they spoke. Just absolutely, I don't know. That's kind of evil shit by James Gunn, bro. I can't even lie.
Yeah, the character designs were sick. And that's why it's funny, because like Lila, Floor, and all them, those are like really sick character designs. I personally thought when they were on Counter Earth, I thought those animals were kind of cute-ish.
Yeah.
Said those are a little bit too freaky for their taste too, but I thought they were kind of cute. But yeah, the like Floor and all them, it was so heartbreaking too. They were like, "Isn't it so great to have friends?" Like, they kept doing like all this emotional stuff.
Yeah.
And seeing it in IMAX 3D again, I can't recommend this enough. Like, they have them close-ups of these animals like in your face, and you literally, we were talking about homie's eyelids being glued open like on some Clockwork Orange vibe. Like, bro, that was crazy. Like, that was absolutely insane. So those animal designs were on some different level, man. It was a Marvel version of like a Sarah McLachlan commercial. It was like a real like testament to like, don't treat these animals bad, you know, like that situation.
Oh man, it hurt my soul so bad. But yeah, also the freaking destruction of that planet, that also kind of was like yada yada a little bit too lightly in the movie for me.
Right,
I don't
like,
know about you, but I was just like, they're
yeah.
like 8 billion people died in this planet. They're sentient people, like they're actual, like they have language, knowledge, and I was like, kids and families and culture, and I was like, this is not. Are we not going to fix this?
Yeah, that's not.
But it was just like, yeah, the planet destroyed. Cool. I don't know. I thought that was a little too dark for me as well. But either way, guys, those were our spoiler reviews, spoiler thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Let us know, what was your favorite moment in the movie, favorite needle drop, favorite joke, all that kind of stuff we got into here. Who do you think was the best part of the movie besides Rocket? Let us know all that stuff in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe to The First Cut if you haven't done so already. You can follow me at Squad Leader Ace. You can follow RB3 at Director RB3. I said it. I did it. We're doing it. Either way, guys. Oh yeah, make sure to follow us on TikTok as well, guys. Make sure you do that. First Cut TMO. But either way, guys, for the First Cut crew, we're gonna be peacing out. So do so. Peace.
Remain, it's either me or you.